Hello and welcome everyone to the webinar How to Educate Through Tree Planting Activities for Climate Action. This webinar is part of the Terra Mission, Teaching Sustainability for Action MOOC. My name is Miriam Molina, and on behalf of the Life Terra project and Scientix team, I would like to thank you all for joining us. My colleagues, Julia Lotin and Maria Dios, are also attending and supporting this session. If you experience any technical issues, please leave us a message in the box. In this webinar, our speakers will discuss about why planting trees is important and give practical examples on how to plant the right tree in the right place. So today with us, we have Aroa Gregory, Teresa Sauras, and Crystal Moore. Aroa Gregory works as a coordinator of the Education Working Group at the Life Terra Foundation. She's also involved in the implementation of the Life Terra project in Spain, organizing and leading tree planting events with citizens and school children at Volterra Ecosystems. Associate Professor Teresa Sauras is a biologist in the Faculty of Biology at the University of Barcelona. She has focused her research primarily in soil fertility, plant physiology, and forest ecology. She uses the knowledge from basic research to develop nature-based solutions to cope with environmental issues. Professor Teresa provides the Life Terra project with the best scientific knowledge in ecosystem and landscape restoration. And finally, our third speaker, Crystal Moore, is a pre-doctoral researcher at the University of Barcelona, where she's currently obtaining her PhD in the Department of Evolutionary Biology, Ecology, and Environmental Sciences. Her PhD is through the Life Terra project, and she works in the intersection of social and environmental sciences, analyzing behavior change and effective communication of environmental issues. And before I pass the floor to our speakers, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, please make sure that your sound is turned on, and we would like to remind you that during this webinar, your cameras and microphones are going to be off. Secondly, thank you for posting your questions in the course in advance. We got many questions, but if you have any additional questions, please post them in the chat and we are going to collect them and address them at the end. This chat is recorded and we will publish it in the course so you can revisit and watch it again if you wish. And now, without further ado, Aroa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and thanks for such a great introduction. Thank you also to our colleagues from the European SchoolNet and Scientix to make this great MOOC possible. My name is Aroa, and I will give you, first of all, a short overview about the Life Terra project that I'm sure you at this point are already familiar with. So Life Terra is a European initiative with the mission to restore our connection with the Earth and to enable people to take impactful climate action now. How do we do this? We facilitate tree planting, we educate future generations, and also we develop tree monitoring technology. Life Terra aims at planting 500 million trees, which is a symbolic number because we are 500 million people or citizens in Europe, so that would mean 1 tree per and for 1 person. Our motto is plant trees, grow forests, and restore Earth. But we are not just another tree planting initiative, and this is what makes us really unique. First, we plant the right tree in the right place and also for the right purpose, sharing knowledge and expertise. Also, we monitor and track every single tree we plant, thanks to our unique platform to Tag Your Tree, that we will be talking about it later on. Also, as you know, we have an educational program that in which you are involved to educate future and all generations about sustainability and climate change. And at the end, we want to create this green movement and to engage the whole community in tree planting for large-scale positive impacts. And how do we do this? We are proud to work with a consortium of 16 partners or organizations from 8 different European countries that bring together expertise, knowledge, and all their network in these 4 pillars that we are working on, which is implementation, the planting itself, also the technological part of the project, the communications, and our focus here, the education. For that, we are also supported by the European Commission through their LIFE program. And for this education focus, we work with the University of Barcelona. We have here our colleagues, Tere and Crystal, the European Schoolnet, and also Ginzi. Life Terra is aligned with a number of, well, 6 of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. And here I'd like to briefly share with you a few achievements with which we have already met in 1.5 years of the project. We have planted already with about 7,500 volunteers who were involved in more than 130 tree planting events or activities that took place in 9 different countries in Europe. We have also engaged more than 1,300 teachers from 30 different countries who are interested, as yourself, in our activities and our mission, engaging potentially about 20,000 students. And finally, we have trained more than 100 Terra leaders that we will explain you later on what that means. And yeah, altogether we have planted more than 225,000 trees. These are not final numbers because we are still in the middle of the tree planting season. We will finish in summer and update this number. So we keep working on that, and we are looking forward to keep growing together with you and your collaboration. So now I give the floor to my colleague Tere from University of Barcelona, who will explain you more about why trees and which trees are the correct ones. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Aroa. Good afternoon, everyone. So my talk is about planting trees, restoring ecosystems, and climate action. So when we talk about planting trees, we are not talking just about trees, but also about ecosystem processes, and with a long-term goal. So when we start a project of planting trees, it's a long-term project. Some of the first questions we can address in our project is why we are planting trees and which trees we want to plant or we plan to plant. No, first is that because climate change benefits from trees and from forests. So trees are very good absorbing carbon, so helping to the climate change. But we need selecting tree species to plant in the European Union or in Europe. So this is a vast terrain. So with a lot of climatic conditions, we are different countries. You are living in different countries. So we need to know which criteria we are going to follow, where to find information, trees to plant, trees to avoid. So these are also some challenges we are dealing with. And in the end, it's very important to monitor the planted trees, as Aroa also said in the beginning. And this is because the trees are a long-lived organisms, so they need time to grow, time to store carbon, and we have keep these trees at least for 40 years. So as we are talking about climate change and we are facing this climate crisis, let me introduce a bit about the climate change. As you know, and you probably know that the atmospheric CO2 concentration is keeping rising from year to year, and nowadays we are nearly 420 ppm of CO2 in the atmosphere, and this is mainly due to the use of fossil carbon sources like coal, oil, gas, and others, such as cement or concrete. So these are the main responsible or the main sources for the increasing of CO2 in the atmosphere. So this increasing of CO2 in the atmosphere is warming, is making this greenhouse layer in the atmosphere that is trapping energy and is warming the planet. But how much is going the planet to warm? We know that the temperature is increasing year by year. we have been having the hottest years in the last 7 years. So how much? So we don't know yet. We are lucky because the future is not written, and we can reduce our emissions. So depending on whether we continue emitting CO2 as we are doing by now, we will get a very warm planet that is in this scenario of in red. You will see in red where the emissions are rising, but we can change our emissions, reduce a lot, or maybe to keep a little bit cooler the planet, or even cooler than was before with the blue scenario. So these are estimations. So there are many things to do, but we have to take into account and keep in mind that we are living in a transient climate. So this is important when planting trees, because trees will be growing in another climate different than the climate we have now. So, but planting trees is one of our actions to fight climate change, because by planting trees we can build up the carbon stocks while restoring ecosystems. So trees are very efficient capturing carbon because they are doing photosynthesis, as you know, those absorbing carbon while releasing oxygen to the earth, and this CO2 is transformed in organic carbon and is stored in the different growing parts of the tree. That means in the roots, in the trunk, in the crown. So they are efficient building up carbon stocks, but we need to choose the appropriate species for the different environmental conditions we have in Europe. And we need also to select different plant traits for different environmental conditions. So in addition of capturing carbon, we need to consider other issues. If we look at the ecosystem level, we see that forests absorb CO2. They also, forests respire and are emitting some CO2. And these are also accumulating organic carbon in the soil through the dead organic matter that leaves, roots, or wood that is incorporated into the soil. So the growing of a forest is a long-term process, and for each hectare of restored land, we can capture about 2,000 tons of CO2 over a 40-year period. So it's interesting, it's an important stock in carbon, but it takes time. Okay, apart from capturing carbon, we are restoring landscapes and ecosystem, not just planting trees. So it's now we are going to talk a little bit about how to select the tree species. So first of all, if we consider the planet, there are several biomes that we can find depending on the climate, mainly on the rainfall and average annual temperature. That means that we can have tropical rainforest in the very warm and wet climates, and taiga in the very north and cold Europe. So this is a first approximation, a very broad approximation, but then we can go in more detail to understand and to look for which type of trees we are going to plant. And if we look at Europe, we have several biogeographical regions. And if I say you Mediterranean region, Atlantic region, continental, boreal, alpine, so probably some of you are living in one of these areas, and you probably figure out or now which forest ecosystem you have around you and which trees are dominating this forest. So this is a more detailed information to select species. However, there is not a unique recipe to choose the 3 species you are going to use, but there are some principles that we follow in Life Terra and in general in most of the projects when you are dealing with nature-based solutions, is that we always use native species. We are avoiding alien species. We plan to increase biodiversity, so we are using several tree species in every planting project. But we also use a diversity of plant traits. That means you can use broadleaf trees or conifers or perennial trees or deciduous trees or more fast-growing trees or more slow-growing trees. You have a mixing trees in a way that we are growing a resilient and biodiverse forest. That means prepare for the new climates and the new situation we are going to face in the future. But not only climate, but other disturbances we can get in the future and in the present. Like it can be forest fires, drought, pests, diseases. So having diverse forests, we have more resilient systems. So, as I told you, there is no unique recipe to design a planting project. And I would say that every planting project starts thinking and doing a little bit of research. And this is for everyone, and this is also for you in the schools. And I think I would suggest that is a nice starting to do a class research project where you can research a little bit about the climate in your city, in your region, or where you are going to plant. Also looking for the geology, maybe soil type information, looking for information about vegetation in your neighborhood if you are going to plant near your school. Doing some research about which are the main natural forests in your region, or which are the dominant trees in the parks where you are living. So look for some experts to help you. Probably if you look around the school, you will meet some foresters or biologists or gardeners. And also a very important thing is that we need to use tree species that are available for planting. That means that there will be professional people growing these small trees for us. So once you have decided more or less which are the set of species you are going to use, is the time to plan the planting. And I would suggest going to the site, make a field trip, explore the terrain, look if there is, how is the slope? Is this very steepy? There are flat areas. How is the aspect north, south? Others, are there some streams there? Is there a lake or not? I don't know. So, and take profit and take time to learn about the environmental requirements of the species you are going to plant. It's very important to know the species because you get more engaged with this. So I will suggest having a look to the European Atlas of Tree Species, where you will find a lot of information also for kids about the habitat of every European tree, about the products, the ecosystem services, the ecology, and it's nice information. So, but the planting or the project doesn't finish after planting. It's not a matter of planting and that's all. As Aroa said also in the beginning, we are very interested in monitoring the process. So we are interested in monitoring the seedling survival. That means you plant the trees, but we need the trees keeping alive. So it's interesting to monitor the survival. It's also very important to monitor the tree growth and estimate the carbon stocks. If we estimate the tree growth, we can transform the biomass in carbon. So we know how much carbon we are capturing. And also, this is, I mean, the planting and the forest you are growing is a fantastic resource for teaching and learning in the coming years, I guess. So to finish, just to keep in mind some of our principles and challenges in the project that are transparency, biodiversity, the right tree in the right place. That means an ecosystem-based approach, building ecosystems. Trees are not enough, and probably Crystal will talk about this. We have seen that we cannot halt the climate crisis just by planting trees, but can help. Knowledge is power. Sustainability, that means that the planting will continue. I mean, the monitoring will continue in the future. We are engaged to maintain alive the trees and to ensure that we are using all the carbon capture potential. And if possible, I will encourage you to use green procurement. So your suppliers, our suppliers, that being organizations that have social and environmental goals in addition to their financial ones. And that's all for my part. So I give the floor to Crystal that will help you to learn how to measure your own emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Terra. Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Crystal. So today I'm going to briefly talk to you about a tool that we're developing in the project to empower users to lower their individual emissions. As we know, tree planting alone is not enough to halt climate change. We need people to take individual action to combat their carbon emissions. In order to take action, people need to know what emissions are associated with their day-to-day actions. So I'll talk a little bit more about what those actions are a little later in the presentation. But firstly, what is a carbon footprint and what is a carbon footprint calculator? So a carbon footprint is the amount of carbon that we emit through our day-to-day activities. And as you might have already guessed, a carbon footprint calculator is an online tool that allows people to measure the impact of their activities. And then it also encourages people to make sustainable changes. It's also a good tool to measure these changes over time. The tool shows users a numerical figure related to their activities, and it also explains whether the user is a low emitter, a medium emitter, or a high emitter. So our carbon footprint calculator is still currently under development, but we will share it once it has been completed, and we will be encouraging all of you to take part. So we developed a quantifiable calculation methodology for each question and answer so that we could obtain a representative value of a person's overall carbon footprint. These questions and their calculations were developed based on an extensive literature review and also a review of other available carbon footprint calculators. So our aims are firstly to gather data about user emissions and societal behaviours for the Life Terra project. We then want to encourage people to reduce their footprint and to offset their emissions by supporting the Life Terra project, either by adopting a tree or participating in planting events. And then lastly, we want to address the existing research and market gaps. So basically what we did that other carbon footprint calculators haven't done, we added questions that they don't include, such as a wide range of vehicles, hidden footprints, recycling calculations, and so on and so forth. So what does that look like? These are the 5 main categories of the carbon footprint calculator that we've developed. So firstly, we have transport. So for example, what means of transport are you taking to school every day? and how far are you traveling on that form of transport. The next is hidden footprints. So for example, how long do you spend on social media every day? And yes, believe it or not, there is a carbon emission associated with that. The next is personal habits. So for example, how often are you buying a school uniform and what material is that uniform made out of? The next is household. So in a classroom, you could, let's say, what type of electricity are you using and how often are you using it? What materials are the building made out of, and so on and so forth. Then in our last category, we have diet. So I'm going to show you an example of what our carbon footprint calculator looks like on the diet question. So as you can see, the question that we've asked is, what does your typical diet consist of? And then we have a range of answers for the user to select, ranging from meat lover to vegan. And then as you can see, there is a mathematical equation associated with every different answer that a user can select. This one was actually just lifted straight from the literature because, as you can imagine, there was a lot of literature on the topic of diet and carbon emissions. Okay, so next steps. So first and foremost, once the tool has been developed, we want to collect the data. So the carbon footprint calculator will be housed on the Life Terra website and disseminated through our networks. So we will encourage people, including yourselves, to calculate your footprint via the online portal. Next, we want to analyse the data. So we will look for patterns and themes to draw conclusions about societal behaviours. And we will also send a reminder to ask people to recalculate after either a certain time period or maybe after attending a planting event. And then lastly, we want to empower people to act sustainably. So our main goal, once data has been collected and analysed, is to encourage people to change their behaviours into a more sustainable way. Okay, I'll now pass on to Aroa, who will discuss the practicalities of why and how to plant trees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crystal. Very interesting tool. We will be super looking forward to share with all of you. So now I would like to discuss a bit with you the idea of planting trees with your pupils, why this is a good idea, and also how you could do it or how we could help you to do this nice activity. So first of all, planting trees with students has several different benefits. The first ones are maybe the most obvious ones, which are the environmental benefits. So trees, especially in the city or in an urban peri-urban environment, improve the quality of the air and also reduces the noise levels, either if you plant inside the school or in your own neighborhood. They also provide shade, which protects us against heat waves and extreme weather, the so-called climate shelters. For example, the city of Barcelona is pushing now in several schools to try to make them more resilient to these new conditions of harsh environment due to climate change. Trees also obviously enhance the aesthetics or the aesthetic value of the building and the environment, creating healthier learning environments, which are proved to be more beneficial for the learning processes. And finally, of course, they increase the health and the well-being of pupils and also of teachers and the whole educational community. But then also planting trees with kids or with students has different pedagogical benefits. For example, they are, as Tere said before, they are fantastic learning resource. You could do any sort of project based on science or STEM, but also an arts project. You can study climate change, you can observe and study the growth of the tree, the seasons and how they change, but also the associated fauna like birds, like butterflies, like pollinators or flowers. So it's really a resource itself. But then it's not only about the planting and the having trees there, but the maintenance and the care of the trees is also a super powerful tool to develop these skills and engage children in this sort of values, like taking responsibility for a living thing, also be patient because this takes time, as Tere said before, take ownership or stewardship of the tree, but also work together as a team and cooperate and respect nature, others, and ultimately have a long-term vision for what they are doing. We are trying to avoid all this plant a tree in a day and then that's it, but just the opposite. And afterwards, it's also a nice outdoor learning space that trees can provide, which increases the creativity and motivation of students. What is more, the planting itself of a tree is a fun, hands-on and outdoor experience that gives kids and anyone a rewarding feeling and also a positive memory for their lifetime. So this is probably something that they will learn forever because it's learning by doing. But also it creates this emotional connection between nature and themselves, and also with themselves, with oneself, which at the end is a meaningful learning experience and also increases self-confidence. It's like learning by feeling, no, and taking really ownership and loving what you are doing. And finally, we think it also increases the interest for natural sciences and for the environment and be more curious about everything, and hopefully inspires also them to take green projects or get involved in solidarity projects. And ultimately, the social benefits of planting trees, which is obviously this action makes a contribution, as Tere said, it's not only about planting the tree, but restoring the ecosystem and also restoring the people and our connection with the earth by engaging the community and yourself in real climate action. So they also, it's empowering, I think, to engage children in their own future in climate solution that will be for the good of everyone and also the planet itself. It's all about this motto of think globally and then act locally. So until now, we have presented a bit the general idea and the philosophy behind the Life Terra project and also some details on the importance of trees and an overview and everything. But now I'd like to focus and narrow down a bit more and see how we can do this and plant trees together. So as you know, probably at this point, the Life Terra project has a strong focus on education and training. We do this through 3 different strategies, which is educate all generations, then train the trainers, and then plant with the community. So for the first strategy, first thing we have, as you well know, is the Terra Mission. So the educational pack you are going to explore here in this MOOC for pupils aged 8 till 14 years old. But this is not the only thing. We also plan more activities that will come after the MOOC and will keep you informed about it so that you can also participate and get involved. Our Train the Trainers program is called, well, Terra Leaders. That's how we call these empowered volunteers who take the lead in our tree planting event. So really take the step forward and lead an event. So they basically support participants to plant correctly, because there is also a whole thing about planting. We have to plant in the correct way in order to ensure or to maximize the survival rate of the trees we plant. So these Terra leaders, at the end, they make a difference in the community by inspiring others, including your students, for example, to take climate action, while also getting in the process knowledge, skills, and also hands-on experience in climate solutions and landscape restoration, as Tere was mentioning before. And the third and main activity we do is the events, or the planting events themselves, as we call them, where we engage the whole community and all stakeholders possible, including schools like yours, but also landowners, also NGOs and local governments, the private sector, and the general public. Anyone is welcome to work together and to join efforts to organize this type of activities. And all our planting events are also supported by our Life Terra web app or platform that I will tell you a bit later more in detail what is it about. It's basically to georeference every tree that is planted, so we can then follow up. So the idea would be this school planting event would merge all these 3 strategies in one. So for educating all generations, we have the Terra Mission that you can explore in the classroom and beyond. Then the trainers, we thought the motivated and committed teachers could be these leaders that really want to take the lead and encourage their students to plant together. And finally, the plant with the community would be here, of course, the school planting event itself. So in order to give you a bit more tips on how you could do this, even though Terry already explained a bit what you have to think about before planting or organizing a planting event, I'd like to stress a few elements that are key for any tree planting activity. So the first thing you need for sure is land, is where we can plant. It can be at the schoolyard, or it can be also outside the school in the neighborhood. It can be public land or private land. So in order to find this suitable space where trees are suitable, are fit to be there, we recommend you to ask your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues at work, and also local decision makers to find these spots where trees could be planted. Like, for example, the local city hall. That's how we do it. We go to city halls and ask them if they want to plant. They're always super looking forward to use these bare spaces for a new garden for the city or a new forest in the surroundings. The first thing you need for sure also is the knowledge. So the right to plant the right tree in the right place. For this, we advise you to get expert advice for species selection. You can ask the university, the landscape school close by, or the biology teacher, and just making sure that the species are native and are biodiverse and all the requirements that Tere mentioned before. But also you can even go further and become an expert together with your students and make a class research about which are the native tree species we could plant, which are the most appropriate trees to plant here, and make a whole project out of it together with your students. Then you need trees, also obviously. To get the trees, you can go to the local tree nursery, which is where they grow these baby trees. We recommend to plant between 1 and 2 year old seedlings, which are the baby trees that you can see there, because this is the appropriate size and age for them to really grow well in the soil. And also sometimes you have, depending on your environment, to consider protecting these trees and get protectors. And finally, you need people. So motivated people like your students, even their families, other neighbors, or even NGOs, and of course, teachers, yourself, who will become Terra leaders. And what do we offer? Like, how can we help you? So we have the Life Terra platform, what I mentioned before, to keep track of your trees, because every tree you plant, then with the platform you take a picture, so you have it there with the coordinates. This is useful to engage your students and the families in the planting and in climate action eventually, and be part of the Life Terra community, which is a international community. We also offer training materials. The Terra Mission topic 8 is about trees, but also we have more guides on how to plant step by step that you will find in the resources, and even further resources that we could share later on if you take the step of organizing an event. We also offer our dissemination channels in social media that we are supported by the European Commission and have an international reach. And also, finally, and I think the most important one, is to create a legacy that matters. So this activity is at the end a meaningful learning tool and a green legacy for your school in the long term. So it's an opportunity for you and also for your students especially to get involved in real climate action, explore the solutions to face climate change, and learn about trees, about native species, and even meet maybe local experts and build a community. So what we want to tell you is that this is we want to facilitate you organize your own planting event, and this is for us work in progress. So we are really thinking how we can help you. Starting from next year, of course, because there is also a season where you can plant. So usually in the winter, not in the summer. So this could start from next course. Now is the time to think about it and explore all the key elements we were discussing: trees, land, people, knowledge, and then later on try to really start this activity from next year. So we recommend to check if Life Terra is active in your country, because we have teams in different countries in Europe. Also follow us in social media and sign up to our newsletter, because we keep you posted there once this whole process is ready for you to apply for and organize your own event or your own tree planting event. And then take into account that this is, as I said, a work in progress, and we'll provide you with more info about more detailed practicalities later on. Finally, I would like to show you briefly how our platform looks. As I said, we try to monitor every tree that is planted, to collect data and to engage with the tree, with the planting, and to make sure that this survives and lasts and grows and becomes an adult tree. So for that, we have this tool. It's like a web app, so you can use your smartphone when you go in the field to plant trees. And after you have your event and you take the picture and you have your trees, you get this nice dashboard in in the Life Terra platform. As you can see there is a map where all the trees that have been planted so far are registered. So you can here register your own trees, but also adopt trees and also share your trees to your friends and show everyone what you are doing, including the students' families and so on. So here, if you go, this is the all trees, okay, all together. But then you can also go to your own trees. Here it says my trees. In this case, you see 46 because this is the trees I planted in this season. So this, you can see this is a big plot. So if you go to all trees and zoom in, you will see all this plot is planted with trees, but these are the ones that I planted myself. So if you go and click on one of those dots, on one of those pins, then it shows you the tree, the picture I took of that tree the day I planted it in the field. It says here, plant it yourself, and it gives me also the date when it was, the event in which this picture took place, and also the coordinates, so the location, the exact location where the tree is, so I can always go back to this place and visit the tree and see how it is doing. And also it has here a link where you can read species Quercus ilex, which is the whole moke, this specific species, where you can read more information about the species itself, about the whole moke, and you can also explore and learn about this species together with your students. So that was short overview. We have more materials to share that I'm sure you will be exploring during the MOOC. Thank you again to everyone, and we are looking forward for your questions.
Thank you very much, Aroa, Teresa, and Crystal, for such an interesting and engaging presentation. The teachers have been very active in the chat. So now, as Aroa said, we move on to the Q&A session. We had more than 120 questions already in the course in advance, so thank you very much for that. We hope many of these questions were already answered by the speakers during the presentation, but if you have any additional questions, comments, please write them in the chat and we will try to address them, keeping in mind that we have around 15 minutes left for the Q&A. So while teachers are typing the first questions, and maybe we can start by addressing some of the questions posted already in advance in the course. For example, one question is, how is the process after planting the tree? What happens after that?
So,
you go, Tere, or I go?
yes, I can go. What happens so that the Okay, this is a very important time for the trees because they have been in the nursery living rather well with all the watering and all the nutrients. So when you plant them in the field, the trees are experiencing harsh conditions maybe. So it's the time for the roots to grow, to explore the soil. But okay, when you plant the tree starts to grow. So it's time for the roots to grow, and then maybe also, I don't know, keep growing, we guess. But of
Yeah,
course, if the seedlings are not good or not very good quality, or the weather is very bad for a long time, maybe for more than 1 month without rainfall, depending on the country, then the seedlings die, and we have mortalities.
Yeah, well, it
We
is
have to
important
accept.
to thank you, Terra, for mentioning that. Let me compliment, because it is very important to stress that the tree survival in any planting action is never 100%. You will always get mortality. That's the natural process. We have also to understand this. This is not a failure. What we try is to use as many strategies as possible to ensure that the trees have the maximum chances of survival. But this never is 100%, unfortunately. But yeah, this is important to mention. Also, I'd like to stress that we always work with landowners, either if they are private per individuals or if they are city halls of big cities. We always sign agreements and also discuss before a planting event to make sure that the trees are going to be maintained. So this action, which is very important for the trees, not like just planting it and that's it, but just when we plant it is the start, of the thing. So we make sure that the trees are well cared and irrigated when it's needed, and we work with landowners and land managers to make this possible.
It's not always possible to irrigate if you are in the middle of the countryside, but if you are near the school,
Much easier, yes.
yeah.
Thank you so much. We also have people asking in the chat for the Life Terra app. We will share it later in the chat. And if we don't have time for this, don't worry, because it's included in the MOOC, in the future module that will start on Monday. But we'll try our best to also put it in the chat. Now, mention in the chat, this is not really a question, but I found it a really nice comment. Climate change is a burning issue. Every school should have this project incorporated into their curriculum. This is the most important subject. I don't know what you think about this. I found it really interesting.
So I think, of course, it's a burning issue. And okay, I think, for instance, when we have this footprint calculator, this carbon footprint calculator, it's a way that we can make a diagnosis of ourselves. I mean, you can understand how are you behaving, how is your impact, and then reduce a little bit. But okay, this is one issue that maybe Crystal can talk a little bit more. But then we have also to fight that for I guess this is also, there are socioeconomic reasons and also political issues that everyone has to do their best.
Yeah, as my colleague said, it's not only about planting trees, but about reducing emissions and really making a contribution. So that's why the Terra Mission, the educational pack, is not just about planting. It's not just about forests or about trees, but we cover a lot of sustainability topics that we can really make as contributions as much as we can in different ways. So yeah, thank you for the comment.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I will go back to the course because we had many, many questions. And one of them was, what are the challenges you face when teaching a whole class of children outdoors and on how to plant a tree? Are there any remarkable challenges to share?
That's a very interesting question. I'm trying to think about the times where we planted with kids, it was really, I must tell you, the best tree planters ever, the most motivated people, more than adults, because they are really engaged. And especially imagine we have now passed through a pandemic, very hard, with children being at home for so long. So actually when we planted with kids, it was the very first days they could get out of the school after being for a year without any outdoor activities. So the challenge, I would say, it was to keep them calm because they were so excited. But I understand also the important part when we organize these plantings with any sort of participant, adults, kids, doesn't matter, is to plant, as I said before, to plant the tree correctly, in the correct way. Because if you plant it wrong, you miss this out or whatever, it's really probable that the tree doesn't survive. So we really stress the importance of planting correctly. And for that, you need a rather small group. So it's also something to think about. If we go in the field to 100 people, doesn't matter the age, but it's more challenging than if we go with 20 people or we have enough adults who are well trained on our materials about how to plant a tree and really understand the step-by-step part, because they do it really well and they are really enthusiastic, but they also need the attention and the time to get the skills and the knowledge. So these are the challenges I could share right now. Maybe my colleague would complement, I don't know.
Yeah, this was great. I'm sure that there are many challenges, but also it's really rewarding to finally do an outdoor activity and especially a planting event. We're going back to the chat because we have many new questions. For example, after forest fire, what steps should be followed to plant new trees?
Okay. There are several questions about forest fires because some other ask if it's interesting to plant soon after fires. I would say it depends very much on the ecosystem that has been burned, but usually you have to wait for 2 years before doing any restoration. But of course, only in the case that you want to keep the soil because there is a big risk of erosion, then you do urgent actions. But dealing with planting trees, we recommend to wait for 2 years because soon after the fire, there is a big risk of soil erosion. So you will get worse than leaving the system without nothing. And in addition, we sometimes forests are adapted to fires, as you know, and there are several species that resprout. So you need to leave the system to recover, and then to help, and then maybe you are going to plant other species to make a more resilient forest, or to plant some species that have been lost or whatever. But first, wait for 2 years to look how it's going the natural regeneration, I would say.
Thank you so much. We will keep this 2-year number. I think it's very relevant and something that at least I didn't know. So thank you so much. Going back to the chat and also actually to the MOOC itself, we had many questions, specific questions on which tree can I plant with my class. This is the type of environment that I live in. Now we have also in the chat some questions. How do we know what trees we can plant in our area? We discussed this a little, but maybe can we give 2-3 important things to what can we do? How can we start?
Okay, I can start myself, but Aroa has much more experience than me. But okay, you know that there is no a unique recipe. It very much depending on whether you are planting in the countryside, in the nature, or nearby your school, in a peri-urban place, or in an urban place. So, as I said you before, get as much information as you can about the place, about the vegetation or the trees you see around, but always using native species. And if you go to the countryside, look for the trees, the forest you find, the trees, the dominant trees you get there. If possible, try to use also some trees that are coming from maybe a more dry places or more warm places, like moving some Mediterranean trees little bit to the temperate forest, because they will survive, and maybe they will survive when the climate continue getting drier and warmer. So, but about the trees, we cannot say plant this and this and this species. And this is very important that you keep in touch with the nurseries, the people growing the plants, because they will also give you a very good advice if there are a good quality nurseries. I mean, if they are growing trees for the natural trees, the main trees in your area. So that could be the main advice. And I don't know, Aroa, probably you have more ideas.
I agree with you 100%. Maybe just to stress the fact that we always try to encourage you to plant diverse. So not just choose one tree and then start planting a lot, but really think of the mixture of the trees. And also, for example, just to give you maybe a small tip, is that maybe a minimum, okay, you can also plant in the schoolyard where the space maybe it's around the school or in a park, or your own space, but also you need a minimum amount of land if you want to make I don't know, a 100 trees planting, which is the average, I would say, number that we cover for a one-day tree planting with kids, just to give you an idea of how many, or more or less. These are estimates, of course, and it depends a lot on many things. That's why, as Tere said, there is not a unique recipe, because also the soil affects how easy or how hard it is to really plant a tree. But yeah, I would say the same. Talk to others, talk to the school itself. I mean, the team of teachers at the school, and exploring your own network to find these experts or these nurseries and local, or even in the city hall, they have technicians, they have gardeners, and they really have this knowledge, and usually is good close to every one of us. So this would be also our main advice. And maybe I can show you super quickly this baby tree I have here with me. Maybe you can see it. This is a lentis, just for you to see how it looks in real life. And I'm trying not to touch the roots of the tree, because I'm also planting it at my own place. But this is the trees that we usually plant. But also the type of trees depends on your own environment. It's a really specific thing. So that would be all my answer.
Thank you so much, both of you. It was very clarifying. And also, I would like to remind participants that we will also be sharing the materials, the presentation, so you can see again and go over the steps on how to plant a tree, and then maybe motivate your students for research on how to plant the right tree in the right place in your area. Now, mindful of the time, we have 2 minutes left. I would like to maybe ask one more question really quick to all of you. Is there a scientific proof that the idea of hugging a tree has any impact on human life and on the life of a tree? Super quick.
I don't know about hugging a tree, but I read a study last year that those that spend at least 30 minutes a day in nature tend to be significantly happier than those that don't. So the benefits of people spending time in nature is significant when it comes to mental health. The interesting thing as well was that anything above 30 minutes didn't make a big impact, but 0 to 30 was a huge impact. So yes, there are definitely impacts on our mental health.
So for sure, they have trees have impact in our lives. And there are scientific papers, very recent scientific papers, talking about the benefits for the mental health, even modifying your blood pressure and so on. So biochemical changes. So, but I'm also sure that I don't know if the tree realize that we are there, around there, for sure not, but there are some biochemical communication. But in any case, if we take care of a tree, the tree will be alive. You can see when you are practicing at the university, and probably all the teachers now, because you have a garden in the school, if a kid or a student take care of the plant keep alive, even if you are trying to die that plant because you are making some stresses. So for sure, if you are close to a tree, the tree will survive.
Super. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone who joins today's webinar. We have reached 6 p.m. And also a big thanks to our speakers, Aroa Gregory, Teresa Sauras, and Crystal Moore for joining us today and sharing your expertise. It was an absolutely pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to you all. Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Super. We hope to see you on our next webinar, Outdoor Learning, Pedagogical Approaches, next week on the 18th of January, Thursday, also at 5 p.m. Central Europe time. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.